continuing to work with cybersecurity experts to restore systems across its network after a cyber attack reached 142 hospitals earlier this month.
That breach had significant impacts on patients and their access to critical medical care. In this first alert update, Emily Riley spoke with a concerned Ascension patient. Emily.
Cami and Bill, Carolyn Moore of Appleton tells me she's currently waiting on a diagnosis with a different doctor. And because of the cyber attack, important medical tests have been delayed, and she's worried for her health. Ascension officials say a plan is underway to restore access across the network. But Moore tells me she's had to dedicate lots of time and money to receive care she needs. And she still hasn't been able to receive a diagnosis without her medical data. She says she's concerned about the security of this data and the potential impact on other patients nationwide, all the while waiting for a potentially life-changing diagnosis.
This has been a real setback for me, physically, emotionally, and at the end of the day, it's beginning to have a financial impact for me as well.
Ascension has released updates on their website since the breach, their last one posted on Wednesday, saying their facilities are remaining open as they continue to work with cybersecurity experts to restore the systems. We'll alert you to any new updates as we get them. Cami and Bill.